Well, we're going to cross then to New Delhi, speak to correspondent Surya Banerjee, who joins us from there. Surya, just bring us up to date, first of all, with what the court said and also what the latest is on the crackdown there.
Yeah, so the court, as you said, has refused to stay the citizenship law for the moment. It's waiting for the government to respond to these constitutional challenges that human rights activists and lawyers have put before the court. So the next hearing will be on January 22nd. So for the moment, the citizenship law stays as is. As you mentioned, it's triggered widespread protests across the country. It's been called anti-Muslim in most of these protests. Last week, they were triggered off last week when this bill was passed through Parliament. In the state of Assam and other northeast states, there were protests because they were worried about a huge influx of migrants, particularly from Bangladesh, which they fear will change the demographics of the state and dilute local culture. Elsewhere, the protests were mainly about the constitutional validity of this law and how discriminatory it was, particularly towards Muslims. It was being condemned as anti-Muslim. And Sunday night, when clashes took place in New Delhi at the Jamia Millia Islamia University between protesters and police, protesters were baton charged by the police. Police stormed the campus and fired tear gas into several rooms, including the library. And that's when the protests across the country picked up speed. The very next day, there were protests across 22 campuses and citizens' protests in various cities, particularly in Delhi, at the iconic India Gate. And this is all because people want to challenge the constitutionality of this latest Amendment Act. Opposition parties and chief ministers, the highest elected official of various states of the country, have said that they're going to challenge this law, that they won't implement it. How far that will be legally possible remains to be seen. Protests continue today as well across the country.
And Surya, you mentioned at the top there the court waiting to find out if there'll be any concessions from the government. I mean, is there any sign that that could be forthcoming?
For the moment, the government remains defiant. Amit Shah, who is the Home Minister from the ruling nationalist BJP party, who tabled the bill in Parliament last week, has said this is not a discriminatory bill. Because Muslims in these three majority Muslim countries are not being persecuted. Now, critics are quick to point out that they're not taking into consideration the Ahmadis, for example, in Pakistan, who are a persecuted group. Myanmar, which shares a border with India, has been left out conspicuously. And in fact, the Indian government has gone to court to try to deport Rohingya refugees. They don't want any Muslim refugees to seek, to come to India. But Amit Shah remains defiant. He said yesterday that both my government and I are firm like a rock, that we will not budge. In an interview with a local news channel, he said he's confident the amendment will stand up to legal tests. Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the past couple of days has also come out and defended the law, saying it won't impact Indian citizens, and has instead blamed the opposition Congress party for instigating these protests.
Surya, thanks very much. Surya Banerjee joining us live there then from New Delhi.